Hey guys, welcome to SD Drain Tile Training 2025. My name is Luke Hallbakken, and alongside me I have Scott Horvick.
I'll be here asking questions, kind of being the class attendee for the presentation today.
Yeah, so we're going to go through pretty much all the ins and outs of SD Drain Tile. So we're hoping you'll stick around. The first thing that we want to talk about is our Rust Sales RTK GPS. This is more a standalone unit for SD Drain products. So what happens is this actually mounts to the back of your SD Drain monitor. As you can see here in the picture, it's the PX5 Rover. And the nice thing about this is, or what we think is that this is the brain box of your receiver. So what we do is we put a dummy antenna, or what we call a dummy antenna, on the tile plow. That way you're not shattering around or shaking around your expensive piece of equipment. It's a much more less expensive piece to replace if it does go bad. So we try to keep all of your smart or expensive pieces of the electronics in the cab with you. And then it also comes with a Rust Sales base station, which would be a unit that you would bring with you to the field that you guys can set up just to ensure that you guys have the best GPS signal available to you. And this is unlocked for the life of the product. So you do not, there's no subscription fees when you guys are trying to get your RTK signal. So again, if you want to check it out, go ahead and ask your dealer. And it is the PX5 Rover and base. Rust Sales support tools. We have manuals.rustsales.com and also sddrain.com. These are two websites that we have put together. There are support pages on each of them that we put together to help you guys if you need quick reference guides, cheat sheets, how to connect guides and stuff like that for connecting your equipment starting up. Or if you guys are new purchasers, there's lots of resources on here for you guys for configuring your globes, running cables, where to mount stuff, and things like that. We also have remote support. This uses an internet hotspot if you guys have hotspots on your phones. So be sure to check that out. And it really helps us out if you guys can get your phones connected to your tablets. And then when you guys call in for support, we'll walk you through and how to get us logged in. That way we can take a look at all of your different settings. If you have questions on the program, if you're doing things right, again, we can log in and actually take a look and see exactly what's going on your screen. And we can actually click around and make changes without you having to touch the screen. So it's something that's been really helpful for us. We've also got chat windows. If you can see in the bottom right corner of this slide, there's a Let's Chat icon. This is on the Rust Sales website and also on the SD Drain website. So if you're on the website clicking around and you have questions, of course, you can always call us, but you can also type into the Let's Chat button and we will get your message and it shoots out to a bunch of us here at the office. So we'll for sure be able to get back to you.
And then there'd also be contact us pages on either rustsales.com or sddrain.com. So.
Next, we're going to talk about John Deere installation. So for guys running John Deere tractors, these connectors are in the back of your cab. There's a slow moving vehicle sign that you need to remove. Once you take that panel off, there's a 10-pin MetroPack connector. If it's a new tractor and has never been plugged into, it'll have a dust cap on it. And a lot of the times I've seen them where they're zip tied way up here, up next to all the ECUs and stuff like that in the off of the main power, or off of one of the main power harnesses. Other times I've seen them where they're actually dangling down below. So really it's just a matter of you either taking the panel off and just finding this connector on the back of your tractor. When you guys plug your DAC 8000 controllers in, that's the controller you get with our system. Make sure the tractor is off. We've had guys plug in two tractors with power on and the tractor running, and it's thrown error codes in the tractor side. And there is a reset procedure that you can do in the field, but it's just something extra that throws you out of sorts. So just make sure you plug everything in with the tractor power off. And when you do plug it in, you'll see this auto with a line through it pop up on your SCV screen in the cab. 2023 and newer John Deere four-wheel drives. These ones They did move the connector off of the back of the cab. It's actually down here in the articulation. There's a 10-pin connector right here that you will plug into. Sometimes I've seen it where it's actually been buried more so down here in the articulation. The easiest way to find it is this is on the driver's side. So where the ladder is to get up in the cab, there's a power harness that runs along the spine of the tractor. Follow that down, and that 10-pin Metro Pack will be right somewhere in this general area. Case installation, so guys running red tractors, quad track 2010 or older, the connector is on the outside of the cab. This is the passenger side, so the passenger opposite, well, obviously opposite the door you get in, but look for that connector in these harnesses here. It'll just be dangling down. Most likely has a dust cap if it's never been plugged into. Otherwise, it'll just be a blank connector. And 2011 or newer, everything is on the inside of the cab, and this includes all the new AFS Connect cabs. You'll open up that cubby door, and we usually use the cup holder as a reference. It's usually directly under the cup holder. They kind of bury this cable in there a little bit. So pull that out, make the connection on our cabling, and then you're good to go. On the right side, there's examples of 1-3 switches. So this 1, 3, and 5, you're only going to use, depending on your plow, the 1 and or the 3. And here's an example of the 1-3 switch on a little bit older tractors. I believe it's the 2010 or older. You might see this rocker switch as well. Oh, and also if you guys don't have this 1-3 switch here in your tractor, be sure to call your case dealer, and you guys can get one of these installed by them. 2023 and newer Magnums, again, on the back of the tractor. So this would be more for guys pulling smaller plows, still being able to use those bigger horsepower front wheel assist tractors. Take the panel off on the back of the tractor, and you'll find this connector here on the right side. Notice they've taken all of the electronics out. So take that panel off, and you'll find that connector right about here. The new AFS Connect cabs, this is what they look like. So if you've got the newer armrest, there's a little bit of different configuration. You're no longer going through the corner post to configure and turn on your auxiliary control. You're actually just going through the Pro 1200 monitor. So you'll click on the tractor and then click on the remote tab here on the right side, and then scroll down and find the auto auxiliary control valve. Depending on your plow, if you're running a pitch plow or a dual control plow, you'll turn on the appropriate auxiliary valves, but there is 2 options. There's A and B. So single control or a pitch plow, you would just turn on A, and then dual control, so like a Prairie, you turn on both A and B. But then you can decide too what remote you're plugging on or plugging into on the back of the tractor. You're not just limited to remote 1 and 3. It's whatever remote you want to plug into, but just make sure that you tell it in this screen what remote you're plugged into for each function. A is going to be your elevation control. So like if you're running a dual plow, in this example of Prairie, A is going to be your elevation, so your main lift cylinders up and down, and then B is going to be your pitch cylinders for controlling the pitch of the plow. Turn those both on if you know, and again, A can just be for pitch if you're running a Soil Max. That's the other option. And then after that, you would program this gray keypad to enable those controls. So you're enabling your auto auxiliary control with these buttons up here. If you click on these buttons, it'll bring you to a page where you can program those functions. So click on, I think it's button 1 through 5 up here on this gray keypad. If you click on one that's open, it'll bring you to the configuration page, and then it'll let you configure, button 1 to turn on auto auxiliary control valve A. Then you can configure button 2 to do auxiliary control B. So make sure you program those. It just makes it easier to turn those on and off. CAT installation, we can plug into C and D tractors, and then also B is if they have the ISO kit installed on them. And the easiest way to tell this is if you look on the back, if you look on the back of the tractor, there's going to be an ISO plug. And if they have that, most likely we'll be able to plug in. we have had some issues where the steering systems will actually kick us off the network, off of the CAN network. So make sure if that is happening, unfortunately, you probably won't be able to use your steering system if it keeps kicking you off. But we do have a solution for that. We do sell an external valve, whether it's a single control or a dual control valve. We have what you need for control. And then the year range on the cat tractors, it's everything up until they switch to the Fendt guts. I believe the hood is the telltale on that. So if it has a newer looking hood, it's most likely a Fendt cab. I think some of the internals look the same as the older season or older cat stuff. But if the hood looks different and looks new, it's most likely a Fendt cab. And if you're unsure, go ahead and contact your dealer and they would be able to tell you what it is. This connection is under the fender on the inside of the cab. So you'll take this panel out and it's always connected to the same CAN bus port as your steering system, which is why it tends to kick us off, because we're using the same network as your steering, and they just take priority over control. So it's in here. There's a T junction, like it's almost way back here. You kind of got to dig a little bit, but you will find. I believe it's labeled as CAN bus extension. So look for that in your cat tractor. John Deere GPS configuration. This is all the same for 3,000, 6,000, 7,000, 7,500 globes. Everything that John Deere has, these are all programmed the exact same. So baud rate 57,600, hertz, change that to 10, GGA, GSA, and RMC checked on, and then turn your TCM off. It's critical that you turn your TCM off because if we need to, we will use a slope sensor for tilt compensation. Everything else we want just raw data coming out of your globe.
Hey, just a reminder too, like when we're at this spot, there's the John Deere 7000s and the 7500s. We've heard that there have been dealers that have been pushing the satellite RTK, but even on John Deere's website, you're not supposed to use that for tiling or for water management. So you'll need a base in the field in order to do that. So your 7000 and 7500 would need to have a radio on it, and then you would have a base in the field. But the settings would be the same for the John Deere GPS configuration as they are with the 3000 and the 6000.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. And another reason too, like we've got a solution for that, is you guys are losing your John Deere tower networks. Again, that PX5R that we talked about earlier is a good solution for you guys as a standalone kit for your ditching and in this case, tiling.
That's just something to talk to your John Deere dealer about.
John Deere programming kit. This isn't so relevant in tile because we want you using a base in the field, like we kind of just talked about. But we do have a programming kit. If you have to be on your towers, we don't recommend you using your tower network as a source, just because they're probably going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away from your location. We like you guys using bases in the field to get the best signal quality that you can. And this is just used to switch off of those towers if you are having to switch constantly. Again, it plugs into the ISO plug on the back of the tractor, and an extension runs up into the cab and plugs into our main power harness. What you'll do is you'll go on your 2630 or John Deere display, make the changes of your receiver, unconfiguring your radio channel and network ID, and then you can go ahead and unplug that cable from our main harness. So it's a temporary connection while you're programming, and then disconnect it so that way you can use your steering. Trimble GPS configuration. This is for the 262, 252, and 372s. This is all the same programming. Again, you'll have to hardwire to our computer to program it. There's a serial port in the top right corner, and then you'll go ahead and loop the serial cable on our main power harness up to that serial port on the computer. You'll open up Ag Remote on your computer, hit File, go to Connect, and then honestly, the easiest thing to do is to follow the instructions that we give you on manuals.russales.com or SD Drain Support, and then go to the Support tab. It's a lot easier just to follow the cheat sheet page than it is to try and talk you through it in this seminar. Egg leader 6500 and 7500 receivers. Again, these are a little bit like Trimble. You have to hardwire to our computer to configure them. There is a page that will show you exactly how to configure these globes. So for the 7500s, you can actually connect to them with your phone. And we need to do that so we can switch the baud rate. That way you can connect to it with our computer. And the reasoning is these receivers default to a really high baud rate that is actually not readable on serial, on a serial connection. So we need to use your phone to switch that, and then we can connect to it on our computer. The 6500s, those you can actually connect to directly to or on the computer. So those you'll just hardwire and then follow. Again, the easiest way to program them is just to follow the instructions that we give you on our websites.
And we'll go through that. We'll go through the website instructions here, or how to find the instructions on the website a little bit later on in the presentation.
Yeah, Scott's made some pretty cool cheat sheet guides and stuff like that that you guys can use. So starting the program, we're actually going to go into SD drain tile. So double click into tile. And my desktop looks a little bit different. This is my training computer. So click agree. And then the first page that you guys are going to come to is going to be all of your file maintenance. So this is you guys keeping track of what field you're installing in. I've got grower, farm, and field on the left side. You've probably seen this in other software packages from different manufacturers. So hopefully it's kind of the same or looks somewhat the same to you guys. I'm going to go ahead and click my grower. I'm going to go to SD drain tile. I've got a pre-planned project here for us to look at. Actually, I'm going to use big iron. That's a little bit better. So big iron, my farm is big iron, and my field is big iron. Again, if you need to switch these because you're going to a different field, go ahead and hit the plus button, then enter the name of that new field, and then hit OK. I'm going to hit cancel. But I'm going to go to new project on the right side here, and then hit continue. Under my guidance lines, again, I've got a pre-planned project that was made for demonstrating what tile looks like. So if I go to guidance, I'm going to load up my 4-inch pipe. I got 6-inch pipe, 8-inch pipe, 10-inch, and so on. There's a whole bunch of different things that you guys get if you were to get a project built by us. So I'm going to load my 4-inch pipe. So there it shows up on the overhead map. I'm going to go to the elevation tab, and we're going to load. I'm just going to do the topo map for this, and then on my background, I am going to, so you get a whole ton of stuff here. I'm going to do, we'll just do the flagging. So it kind of gives you some information on what's going on with each of those installs or installation points. And then I'm going to hit start project. There's here because I don't have certain things turned on. So give me a second here. I'm going to disconnect my GPS, and I'm also going to disconnect my controller that I don't, it's searching for them. So that's why we're getting those errors. So this is our overhead map. This is what tile looks like. If I zoom in here a little bit, you can see all of the different runs that are laid out in this tile project. So we're going to kind of go around the screen here, and I'm going to show you what buttons are. In the top right corner, we have Start Survey. This is the button you're going to press at the top of the run. So you always survey from the top down towards the main, and then you always install going away from the main. So you kind of get in the loop once you guys start tiling. So Start Survey, drive to the main, hit Stop Survey, turn around, put the plow into the ground, then hit Start Install. This is your Start Install button. That's what it's going to enable the screen to control your plow. You're still going to have to most likely enable the tractor side. So for case tractors, that's the 1-3 switch or those gray keypads. And then also for John Deere, it would be just clicking your number 1 SCV and depending on your plow. So number 1 SCV into like detent to get it to go to auto. Or if you have a dual control plow, you would do number 1 and 3 to enable your hydraulics. Above that, zoom in, zoom out. You guys saw that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Here, let's see. Here's the options button. So we'll just kind of work around and go through the different buttons. I guess I skipped line. We'll go to line menu first. So if I click on line menu, this is just all the file maintenance or file management of every run. So it's going to be surveys, installs, and in this case, there's a G up here for guidance. When you guys get surveys and installs done, you'll have an S and an I tab. So I've just got a bunch of guidance lines up here, as you can see. So as I click on those, I can see all of the data associated with this plan. So, and actually they labeled it too. So I've got this one is 221 feet, 243 feet. You guys can see how much data you guys get when you guys get plans made through us. There's a whole lot of stuff here, just so you guys know where to set all of your settings when you guys are putting stuff into the ground. So that's kind of the main thing to look at here in the line menu, just showing each individual run and all of the data associated with each run. Down below that, we have settings. I'm going to go through these. We'll touch on a lot of the stuff, what you guys need to be aware of. We're not going to go through all of it because some of it is more tech support stuff, and we would most likely go through that with you over the phone. But I'm going to go to the options button first. So options, there's a couple different things here. There's a couple different buttons that you guys can look at. We've got tile. This is a tile selector button, which is the same button that's up on top here. And I'll kind of explain. This is a button you actually have to enable, this top one here, for it to be displayed. If you don't want this button up here and taking up some of your screen, you can hide it and then just use this as your tile selector button. But you do have to go into options, click on tile, and then select the one that you want to use. And the only reason that you have to select different tiles is so that it keeps track of the different sizes that you guys install for the report that you guys can print off and have for your records.
What's cool is that when you're in the middle of a run, and if you're changing tile sizes as the run is going on, you don't have to stop. All you'd have to do is just like click on that button and then switch the tile size as you're still installing the tile. So that's a cool part about having that button that's just like right up in the center of the screen.
Yeah, and another thing too is if you want to move this around, this finger looking hand here, you can grab this and drag it around and actually move it off to the side, just so it's not blocking your tractor icon or your plow icon on the screen. So options, edit. So if you guys are wanting to change some parameters and it only associates to that run, you can go to the edit window, and now you can change your min grade, min depth, ideal depth, and max depth, all how you want it to be laid out. So if I change my ideal depth, you guys can see here how that changes my install. I'll talk about the side pro. Let's just do it right now. So everything here in the side profile is all the information you need to know about where your tile is going to be installed and how it's going to be installed. So you can see here, the yellow is going to be your minimum depth. So this solid black line that separates the green and the yellow, that is your minimum depth, which is set in this case to 2 feet. And then I've got green and orange where those two meet. That is going to be your max depth. So typically you'll set your max depth to the size of your plow. And then your ideal depth is going to be this dashed line that strikes through the green. That's going to be the point where you say, hey, I want to install tile at my ideal depth of, in this case, 3.8 feet. It's going to do its best to fit the line in at 3.8 feet. Obviously, with hills and valleys, your tile is going to have to be deeper in some spots and shallower in others, but it'll do its best to keep it at 3.8 feet when it can. And you can change all this as you're setting up your run. When you're done with that, I'm going to hit done editing, and then it'll save all of your changes to that run. And it's actually only that run. So if you're just doing, let's say you've got a whole bunch of patterns and you need to change some of those values just for one run, it only changes the run that you're selected on. And if you need to, if you do a bunch of different surveying, you can change that run by simply tapping on the overhead map, just like I'm doing with my cursor here. You guys can see that. So that is the edit window. Some other things that you guys can see here, we've got graph lines that'll be displayed, target depth, install depth, and flags. That's just displaying the different things. So if you want to uncheck these and not display certain stuff, you can do that as well. And then lock extents. What this will do is if you guys really zoom in, or you really want to zoom in and see how well that plow is controlling, you guys can check mark this lock extents and then zoom in. And what happens is whatever is in view on the overhead. So if you're really zoomed in, really close up to that tile run, the only thing that's going to be displayed on your side profile down here is the section that's displayed up on the overhead. So you can see here, I just checked the lock extents button on. So as I zoom in, you can see that now my bottom map is changing. So as I was driving, it would just keep track of what's in view on the overhead. That is the options button. Down below that, we have the grade change button. This is something that you guys can change as you are actually installing. So if you want to switch your grade on the fly as you're going, you guys can adjust that grade. Say you need to make up some depth or something along the way, or if you just know you want a certain section of that tile installed at a different grade, great. You guys can change that slope as you're operating by hitting the plus and minus buttons here.
Is that only changing the minimum grade?
Correct. Yep. Good point, Scott. It's only changing the minimum grade. We're still going to do a best fit line to make that tile install nice and smoothly, but this will change the minimum grade of your run. The arrows here, if you click on this, this is a pitch change button. So what it does is on prairie plows, there's a slope sensor that is attached to those to monitor the pitch control of the plow. And what this pitch does is if you change this, it will change the way that the tip rides in the ground. So if you increase it, I believe it raises the point up. And if you decrease it, it brings the tip of that plow downward more. And sometimes guys like to change this. I would say for the most time, in most situations, you're not going to adjust this. So I wouldn't even worry about this, but you can change the tip and the way that it rides through the ground. Sometimes guys do this to really fine tune the control of their plow. Prairies tend to control better if they're a little bit tipped down as they're pulling the tile through the ground. Obviously not a lot, because you don't want tile coming out of the back of your plow with a pretty severe pitch, because you'll end up crushing your tile as it comes out of the back of the plow. But if they're just a little bit pitched down, they tend to control a little bit better. So I'm going to leave that on grade, just because then I know I've got my quick change buttons here set how I need, if I need them. So side profile here, we kind of went through that. Green is going to be all the space where you say okay to install. Yellow is too shallow, and orange is going to be too deep. The top middle here, we have a flagging button. This actually is not enabled on all screens by default. You have to go to settings, visual, and flagging and logging to get this, and then just check mark the show manual flags button on, and that will get you this button right here. So as you're operating, if you guys need to mark out different things, rocks, I don't know, different points of interest, if you need to go back to the field to pick things up, or if you think you need to maybe fix something in that area of your tile, go ahead and mark those out. When you guys hit rocks, and just to cover this in kind of the flagging portion, when you guys hit a rock, it's going to throw a red flag on your side profile and also display it up here on the map. That's going to indicate a rock hit. But if it's something extra and you want to flag that out, you're going to have these different flags that you guys can drop throughout your field.
Just a manual flagging option for you to have.
Yeah. Yep. Something to give you guys where you guys can mark out, like we talked about, different points of interest, or if you need to make sure that if you're marking out like an existing main or something like that, you guys can mark out like, hey, I need to stop by this point at the end of the field. So just a flagging feature that you guys can use. Next, on the left side here, we have an up and down. This is I call it the up and down circle button when I'm talking to guys on the phone, but it's actually called the window button. So the window button is going to have two different options. You've got a 3D map, which would actually put this top view, if you have LiDAR maps, into a 3D mode. That way you guys can see the extra. So here I switched it to 3D mode. If I zoom in, zoom out, you guys can see now how the terrain changes. And I'm actually changing the way it's exaggerated with this bar on the right. So just again, to show you guys kind of how cool things can be, or just the extra data you guys can get through making these or getting these tile plans made.
And the thing with the 3D map is that's going to be displayed in a heads-up display. So it's always the map is going to rotate to be the direction that you're traveling. Whereas when we switch back over to the overhead view is a north-up display. It's always a north-up display.
So in the window button, the next thing we have is the side profile. And really, this is more for viewing. If you want to get rid of this, then you've got a big picture and you can look around and plan things that you want to do throughout the field. So again, that is the side profile, just to get rid of that. I'm going to bring that back up here, bring our side profile up. On the left side of the screen, we've got...
Let's on the window button, once again, if you just you can grab that window button and you can press and hold it, and then you can move it down or move it up, and that's going to change the window sizes from the overhead view to the side view.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And that's a quick, easy way. Instead of, turning off your side profile, you can just slide this down quick, take a look, slide it back up as you're operating. So left side, there is also a bubble level. This is indicating with guys who run a slope sensor on their plow. Again, not all plows need it, but this is the slope indicator. So when you guys are trying to level your plow out in the start hole, this is a good indicator to use to tell if your plow is actually level. And actually, if you click on it, and for me, it's going to say no slope sensor attached or detected. I'm going to hit OK. But normally, if everything is connected and working, if you click on this button, it's going to allow certain tractors to be able to level your plow into the ground. And as of right now, it's only going to be case tractors and then guys running external valves as well. Just because John Deere has a safety in where you have to be moving for your external hydraulics to be able to be controlled. And then other things like CAT as well has the same safety for movement. So click on it and it'll walk you through kind of what to do. Make sure your plow's level or in the start hole, and then you press and hold OK to level. And I have a video to show you guys what that looks like. On the left side here, this is what's called your nudge arrows or your on-off target indicator. So as you click, let's say these top arrows, notice they're pointing down. This is going to push your install depth down. So as I click this, hopefully you guys can hear my clicking of my mouse, but watch the side profile. I'm clicking it down, and now I'm clicking it back up to get those depths adjusted. You can do this as you're running, or if at the beginning of your run, you just want to get it either a little bit deeper or a little bit shallower, you can just use these buttons to move your install depth up and down before your run.
Well, and I mean, primarily that's going to show you if you're on grade or not.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what the indicator is. It does more, and that's what Luke's talking about now. Is you can actually manipulate the depth by pressing the buttons on it.
Yeah. So what he was talking about, this indicator, this block here in the center, is going to show you how far your plow is off target or on target, how well it's controlling. This should stay green pretty much the whole time that you guys are installing tile. You might see it flash like yellow or red every once in a while, and most of the time that's when you guys hit rocks or are pulling through a massive grade change or something. But this should stay green the whole time that you guys are installing your runs, and it's going to show you a value, and that value is how far that tile is off of your
Target depth.
target depth. Yeah. Yep. Top left corner here, we didn't talk about this yet, but this is kind of associated with the side profile and your survey. So it's an install depth. It's telling you the current depth that your plow is running at. And the reason I say it's associated like a lot with your survey is because you need to be on top of your survey for this function to work. I think once you get outside of 5 feet, it just reads NA, so not applicable, just because we want you to survey exactly where you're going to put the tile. That way we can give you the best control. Because if you're surveying on side hills and you need to run a bunch of runs on a side hill, well, there's a lot that can change within 5 feet of moving up and down that hill as far as install depth goes. So we like you guys to stay right on top of your survey. That way we can give you an accurate reading and an accurate install. So if you see NA in the top left corner, it's probably because you're too far left and right. And then speaking of directional things, top middle here, we have a light bar. This is going to show you just how far off of that line you are. So you might see in the middle here, it'll give you an indication of 5 feet or 10 feet or whatever. That just means that you're 10 feet away from your original survey.
And remember, it's how far away the implement is off. So there's a GPS signal that's coming from your tile plow.
Yep, not your tractor. Next, we're going to go to settings, and we're going to go through these. I'm not going to do everything because some of it isn't so much related to just everyday users. A lot more of it is troubleshooting that you might that we would walk you through over the phone. So the first thing is project. There's save load settings. If I click on this, it's going to bring me to a page where I can actually save the parameters for each plow. If I've got a couple plows that I run on my farm or in my operation, I can save those parameters, like all of your implement measurements, all of your install depth, stuff like that. You guys can save all of those in here and then quickly load them when you need to switch between those plows. Next is going to be layers. So if you guys want to switch and add different layers when you're installing, in this case, if I wanted to add or get rid of my 4-inch pipe, I'm going to go none. So now you can see it's a blank screen, or the guidance lines have been removed. If I do my 10-inch pipe, you can see here it just added only my 10-inch pipe. That way you can see exactly what needs to be installed and you can separate what's what, which works really nice. So if I want to get rid of that, or if I just want to switch it, I'm going to go back to I'll go 6-inch pipe. So now you can see that is the only 6-inch pipe that I need to install on this plan. We'll go back to the 4-inch just because it gives a nice picture. So that is the layers tab. We'll go start project again. Okay, so settings. The next one down is going to be GPS. Benchmarks is the first one on the list here. So we're going to click into benchmarks. When you guys start a tile plan, you kind of got to think about the future. So the best case is that every field will have a benchmark, and every field you'll be able to park in the same spot every single time to correct off this benchmark. And a benchmark is just a spot in the field that doesn't get disturbed every time you do tillage or every time, something that's going to be consistent year in and year out that you guys can use as a reference to correct your GPS. So go someplace in your field where that is consistent, click add new, and it's going to drop a benchmark where your plow is sitting. Again, like what Scott talked about, the GPS on your screen up here is where your plow is sitting and not your tractor. So when you come back, I'll just give you the quick rundown on how to use your benchmarks. Let's say you're done for the day and you want to go home. You can park your tractor in this location, hit add new in this benchmarks tab. You're going to see this progress bar load, and then it will drop a benchmark, and you'll see it in the list here, but also on the overhead map. I would park your tractor, just leave your tractor right there, do not move, and in the morning you'll come back, start everything up, get RTK GPS coming in, and then go to your GPS benchmarks tab, and then select that benchmark from the list, and then hit start correction. This is going to ensure that just in case the base station was moved overnight or something weird happened with your GPS, this is going to ensure that all of your tile runs are installed perfectly with the previously installed run. So all of the distances are going to be right, and you'll be able to match everything up. Next, we're going to talk about GPS data. So the GPS data page is going to display all of the information coming off of your globe. So everything on the right here, you guys can take a look at. This will be full. So when you guys actually have GPS in your system, there'll be a value in each of these boxes. Fixed quality is kind of the main thing that we're going to talk about. Make sure you have RTK fix. If you've got RTK fix, most likely everything else in here is going to be good. And SD Drain is going to tell you if something isn't good. It'll give you a warning and tell you that, hey, this is out of the range that we want it to be in. You need to fix it to keep on installing. GPS control is the next one. So depending on your GPS, I have a PX5R mounted on the back of my training computer that I'm using right now. So my COM port is COM2, baud rate 57600, and it should be set to serial. For guys running external globe, so your smart antennas like your John Deere 6000s, your 372 Trimble receivers, those type are going to all be set to wireless. And then you'll have to check out our cabling guides on how to connect those in. But that I'm going to call that a basic kit. So a basic kit would be a third-party GPS receiver, so John Deere, Trimble, and stuff like that, where all the stuff, the smart stuff is on your tile plow. Next portion is DAC. We've got DAC config. I'm going to go through that a little bit later. I'm going to go to DAC settings instead. So DAC speed, all these are going to be dependent on what type of plow you're running and what hardware you have to turn on. So starting at the top here, DAC speed, again, is just the minimal speed in order for us not to control the plow. Pitch adjustment is going to be when you're running, if you need to, so since your plow is running at a certain pitch through the ground, if you need to raise and lower the pitch at which it runs, you guys can change that here. Again, that's that same button that is down below in the arrows here. So this is the same pitch adjustment that you would be doing in DAC settings. Pitch adjustment. And then deadband amount, we recommend changing this to 0. So if you guys haven't checked this out, and switch this to 0. Dual link pitch only is going to turn your Crary, and I use Crary as an example, but it's going to turn your Crary plow into a pitch control plow. And where we see this used is in rough conditions, so like extremely rough conditions. And what you do is you actually float your elevation cylinders, and then you only use your pitch to control the depth that it installs. And you have to check mark this on. So you'll float your main lift and then enable your pitch cylinders. Allow joystick override. This is for guys running the external valve. So when you guys click lift, or you click a button on the controller, it's going to shut control off and allow you to raise that plow out of the ground. Slope correction, this one you guys don't need to, just leave that unchecked. You won't need to worry about that one. Slope sensor, these are all of the things that you need to change to enable your sensor. Well, in this case, it's a slope sensor. So you'll check mark slope sensor, pitch roll messages, and then you would do pitch control for tile. And then those are going to be the main 3 here for your slope sensor. And then when you guys are initially doing your setup, you'll need to tear the pitch and the roll on your plow. So you need to, again, check these 3. So slope sensor, pitch and roll messages, and pitch control. And then you would check this box right here to see the streaming data coming off of that slope sensor. What you're going to see is a pitch. It's going to be a P. There'll be a P and a number, and then there'll be an R and a number. And you'll also get 2 buttons that show up here that'll say tear pitch and tear roll. So what you'll do is again, Crary as an example, you'll set that plow perfectly flat. So get like a 4-foot level, put it on the bottom of the shank, level out your plow, Be careful so you don't crush your level. Level your plow out. I've done it, so we've been there before. So level your plow out, and then what you want to do is just tip the front of the plow down about an inch, and that's going to give that plow. It's going to let it ride nose down just a hair as you guys are installing, and then once you nose it down that inch, go in here and click tear pitch, and then the same as for the roll. I usually park perpendicular on a shop cement pad because usually when guys pour concrete, it's sloped away, but it still is parallel with the shop. So it should be flat, and then just tear your roll as well at that. DAC data, again, this is all related to the slope sensor that is connected to your machine. Again, if you don't have a slope sensor, like guys running Soil Max plows, we don't need them for those. You'll have a bunch of pitch and roll data coming in. DAC Control, for guys running a typical standard setup, again, you'll most likely be set up wireless. If you have to hardwire the controller for some reason, and most of the time that's going to be in troublesome times or whatever you want to call them, where something is not working right, you guys can wire your controller as well. So there's a serial connection up here. Next thing is going to be visual. So flagging and logging, check mark the show manual flags button like we talked about before, and then you guys can name what you want these flags to be labeled as. Down below that, we've got enable visual logging. If you check mark this on, what's going to happen is SD Drain is going to start recording all of the data for wherever you drive in that field. And this is more of a data recording feature, as you can see here in the explanation on the right. It's more for guys if you want to survey that field and then get a tile plan or a topography map made. We use LiDAR. So if there's LiDAR in your area, most likely we will use that to create that tile map. But if this is a section where you've done a lot of dirt work before, or you've done a lot of dirt work after they already have flown the LiDAR, then that field might look a little bit different and things might have changed. So then at that point, you would use this tool to record that new elevation data throughout the field. And typically we have guys do like if you can record every like 30 to 40 feet, that's kind of the best case to where you can get a good map made. And then you also want to drive those ditch bottoms so that way we can see the bottommost parts of your field. It just helps with the tile design side to see all of those really low spots as well.
This would be something like if you want to put it on a four-wheeler and use your four-wheeler to go drive the field in order to do a topo one.
Correct. Yep. The next page is going to be units. This is where we've got different measurement tool or different units of measure that you guys can switch between. Again, a lot of guys will leave it the defaults, miles per hour, feet, and then UTM. Next one over is going to be map. Here, this is all related to colors and how things are displayed. So as you guys are installing tile, if you guys don't like the way things are showing up on your screen, you guys can go in here and change different things like your indicator. This is the indicator of your machine on the overhead map. And then you've also got the outline of that. You can change the size to help you guys see that a little bit better on your overhead. And then tile lines as well, survey color, selected color, design color, stuff like that on your map. There's also a show grid lines. So for guys who are not running a piece of equipment that has auto steer, you guys can still get a nice laid out plan. And I'm going to kind of go off the path here. So we're going to use this open area as an example of where I might use this. So let's say I don't have a plan. I don't have any of this, but I know that I want to do some sort of pattern tile. What I can do is zoom in a little bit more. So when you're zoomed in at the right zoom level, this will display all of your tile lines or where you guys can, your guidance lines,
grid lines.
Yeah, grid lines. Yep. So as you zoom out, those will actually go away and you'll get a better picture of your map. But if you zoom in, you can see here now, I'm going to set this to, let's just go 90 degrees, hit enter, and then I'm going to do, let's do, I don't know, 25 foot spacing. So now those lines are a little bit tighter. And actually, what you can do now, let's just say this line is not exactly where your cursor is sitting. Well, if you drag this thumb thing around, it will actually move those tile lines and you can more precisely place your grid lines. And now you can use this as guidance. So, well, not like auto steer guidance, but actually a visual that you guys can follow as you're driving. And once you're happy with where those lines are showing up, hit this lock button right here, and it's going to make that menu a little bit smaller, and it will lock these lines where they're placed. Pop it up, or click the thumb to pop that window back up if you need to change anything. That is the Show Grid Lines button. Next, we have the indicator bar, and this is talking about that left side indicator bar or the vertical indicator bar, and also the horizontal or the steering or guidance light bar. Don't change any of these values. That's all I got to say there. Don't change the auto level range, and then control and work screen. That's keep that checked. Colorblind friendly option. This will change the red, green, and yellow indicator colors to a grayscale. So if you check mark this on, the everything that indicates in color will just be a grayscale to make it hopefully easier for you to see. Then we have graph. So here we've got, again, all dealing with colors. So here's the example below. If you don't like the way your min depth is laid out, you can switch this to red. So there now my min depth is going to be red, and so on. So however you want your map to be displayed, you guys can click through here and change the color scheme. Also lines, you want thicker install lines or indicator size on the bottom map, you guys can change that as well. I'm going to reset this back to defaults. So another nice thing is that if you ever screw something up, there's a reset to defaults button on most of the pages in SD Drain. And that is going to be this little circle right here, or the reset button on the bottom right. Next, we have program, and we have export. I will show you, yeah, we're just going to go through this here. So I'm actually going to show you a project that we can export. I have to open up a different project here, so give me a second. So this would be an example of a project that is complete. And what I want to do is I want to print out all of my tile runs on a nice PDF for my records. So I'm going to hit continue. We'll just open that back up. I'm going to hit start project. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to program and then export. And then what we're going to do is click on report. This is the most common thing that guys will export. And what it is just a PDF report. And I'm going to hit OK on here. And what's going to happen is the program is going to go through a couple things, and then it will generate a PDF report that you guys can hand out to your customers or just to keep on the farm. Hit OK. And now it's going to open up. So I actually created a PDF report here of this field before. So I'm going to click on this dated one here. So tile report. This is your PDF, B North 80 tile report. Double click that open. And now you're going to get a nice printable version of your field. We've got the grower, farm, field, the date that it was completed. And now if we scroll down, we've got a nice overhead view of what's going on. Go down even further.
Well, the date that the report was generated.
Yes, correct. Yep. And then down below here, we can see a little bit more information. Our tile name, 3-inch length. We did 43,368 feet on 10.6, and on 10.7 we did more 3-inch, and we did 66,000 feet on that day. And then if you keep going down, you'll get more information about each run, and there's IDs associated with each run. You can see the length, the outlet depth, average grade, average depth, things like that. So there's 10.6. Keep going. Here's 10.7. We did all these runs. So you can see we've got some longer runs in this project. And if you keep going down below, it just continues on and then shows you the total lengths of each tile size that you did. We only did 3-inch, so you're only going to see the 3-inch displayed. So there is tile exports as a PDF. The other option that you guys have is going to be export, and it's going to be the project. And there's something else, so you can actually overlay all of your runs on a Google Earth image. So if I go project, I'm just going to hit OK, and Tile's going to do its thing to generate or to export all of these different files. So now you can see here we've got an export, so it'll pop up an exports folder. And now here inside here we've got what are called install tile layers. So this is a KML file that will actually open up into Google Earth. So if you double click on this, what's going to happen is it's going to open up Google Earth if it is installed on your computer, and it will actually just lay all of those tile runs on the globe or on your map here. So now you can see in this project, we've got all of our tile runs, and there's some tools, and you'll have to go through this and change the things and move it how you want to see, but I can zoom in, move the map, and stuff like that. But this is all Google Earth stuff that you guys can do. I believe you can print it off too. There's a print button up on top here. If I click print, now it will actually let me label it, and then I can just print out this whole map for my records. And there's something like you can move this map around and get it however you want it to be in your printout. You guys can move that. So save it as a PDF or print. I'm going to close Google Earth. I'm just going to discard it because I don't want to save this. Then close this as well. So I'm going to get back into my other project here. Then I'm going to hit continue. So program support is going to be the next tab over. Again, this is when you guys need online help or us to log in. So if there's an issue with the program, it's usually easiest for us to just take a look exactly at what's going on. Go to this page, hit online help. And what's going to happen is it's going to bring up a team viewer window that'll have an ID and a password for us as long as you are connected to internet. That's the main thing. So get this computer connected to your hotspot or an access point, and then we'll be able to support you better by actually logging in to your screen. Check for updates. I should go over that. Check for updates. This button is for updating each year when you guys update your tile programs. Connect it to internet. Hit click or click check for updates, and it will get you the most recent version of tile that has been released to the public. This number on my computer is probably you won't get this one just because I've got other versions, but just click check for updates and it'll get you the most recent. So there's on this page there is a clickable QR. You guys can just tap on this if you're connected to internet, and then also there's a QR code that you guys can scan on your phone, and it'll take you to all of the manual pages where there's quick cheat sheet guides, how-tos, situational stuff, things that'll hopefully help you guys find the answer you're looking for without having to call us. So we're going to try and support you the best we can, even if we're not there for a phone call. Next button over is going to be tile. So this is where you guys can go in and add all of the different size tile that you're going to be working with. So whatever boots you have. So if you have 4, an 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, whatever boots you guys are running, go in here and add the different tile sizes that you want to keep track of as you're installing. And you can see here, I've got a bunch of different tile already typed in. So hit the plus button, type in the size. It'll be all these. So name, you'll type in a name with a type, size, hit the drop down, select the size. It'll auto populate an outer diameter. Perforation, you guys select that, then an export color as well. To trash them, just obviously click on them, hit the trash button, and it will delete that tile from the list. In the bottom right corner, we have the show tile button. If you check this or uncheck it, it will either display or hide this button right here. This is that tile selector button for changing tile sizes as you're operating.
Well, and it's changing it's changing what you're recording.
Yes, yes, yeah, okay.
I was thinking about that earlier. It's not going to change the tile size. That's like it installed. It's when you change the tile size, like manually in the field, right? And it's going to change what you're recording.
Yes, on the map, in that PDF report that we went over, you will have a different tile size recorded for your records. Good catch, Scott. Just to make it clear, yeah. The next tab is going to be machine. These are all of your machine setup, initial measurements that you guys need to measure out when you're setting up a plow. Plow to ground, you're going from the tip of the plow to the ground. Most of the time, guys will just use the calculator function just because your survey position, it makes it easy to measure by using this calculator. It'll ask you to put the plow level and flat on the ground, hit OK, and then raise the plow up into survey position and hit OK. It'll spit out a value here. Most of the time, like prairie plows, most plows are going to be anywhere between 5 inches off the ground and 10 inches off the ground for this plow to ground. GPS height, measure that in. It shows you exactly where to measure. So from the globe down to the tip of the plow. I usually drop the plow on the ground and then start doing all my measurements. That way you're not trying to if you're alone, you're not trying to, get the tape measure to be exactly on the plow. You can just throw it down to the ground and take your measurement. Fore, aft, left and right. So how far is this globe in front or behind the tip of the plow? Here's the left and right. So how far is it to the left and right of the center of the plow where the tile gets installed? And then auto level. This is the degree or the grade that the plow is going to be leveled to when you guys are using that auto level feature. Next is profile. And these are going to be all of your main settings. So this is where the tile is going to be installed in the ground. So min grade, or where and how, I should say. So min grade is going to be the absolute minimum slope installed on the tile. And then you've also got some other things in here like minimum depth. Again, click on it. It'll give you a nice picture. This is to the top of tile when you're setting this setting. So be sure that it is the top of tile, not the bottom. Maximum depth is going to be to the bottom of tile at the maximum depth your plow can go. And then the ideal depth is going to be to bottom of tile throughout that green area where that tile is going to be installed to. So be sure to adjust this when you guys are switching between, say, a 4-inch tile and a 10-inch tile, because if you install your 10-inch at a 4-inch ideal depth, you're most likely not going to be happy. So just make sure that you guys check this page out when you guys are switching between tile sizes. Max start distance.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to automatically change depending on what tile you're putting in, right? I mean, if you're putting in like a 10-inch tile, it's going to use that calculation for the where it's going in. I'm just saying, if you're putting in 10-inch tile, don't have a 4-inch tile selected.
Correct. Yes.
So
exactly.
If you're putting in 10-inch tile, make sure that you have selected that you're putting in the right that tile.
And he's talking about this here.
Where you're actually putting the tile in the ground could be at a different spot.
Correct. And the thing too is, yes, select 10-inch here, and then also change all of your parameters according to your 10-inch tile. And most of the time, if you guys get a plan made by an agronomist or somebody else, they will hopefully give you all of this data because they have to have all that data when they build your tile design. Max start distance is going to be the distance that we will auto generate a side profile and let you guys connect to your survey. So what happens is when guys survey up to their start hole, the plow, which is your point of survey, doesn't get all the way to your start hole. So we allow whatever this value is up to 50 feet to auto generate a side profile. When you turn that tractor around, you're going past your point of survey, which we don't have survey data there. What we're going to do is auto generate a side profile to connect your start hole up to your survey. Max elevation variance. This is the rock hit function. All it's saying is that if your plow deviates more than, in this case, a tenth from your design, it's going to throw a red flag or a yellow. So red means it went up in elevation, and yellow means it went down in elevation. And this rock hit function is, so let's say we hit a rock, a red flag is thrown, your plow jumps up. We don't go back down to the initial grade. We will redesign the run as long as it doesn't violate any of your minimum depths and stuff like that. We'll just bump your install depth up a little bit so that way you can keep going. Obviously, if it's a big enough rock and it's something that you need to go back and fix, please do that. That way your tile can work the way it's supposed to. But if they're just little rocks that cause just one small little jump, you're probably okay to keep on installing at that run. We will mark it out so that way you know where that happened for in the future. If something bad were to happen where it doesn't drain as it should, we'll at least mark it out for you so you can hopefully fix in the future. Hole distance is going to be a starting depth when you guys are in your start hole. So this is an example of a run. Here is my start hole down at the bottom. So what my hole distance is doing is it is installing at a minimum grade for X amount of feet. In this case, it's 10 feet. So for 10 feet, we are at minimum grade, and then we will start transitioning up in what's called our start flex distance, which is on this page. You can see our start flex distance right here. Usually in most cases, I usually tell guys to set this to anywhere from like 20 to 30 feet is usually a decent transition. And it's all dependent on your guys' side profiles. And then for this hole distance, I would set this honestly to 0. It does transition very well if you just set your start flex distance to like 20 to 30 feet, at least where we tile. Which is in the flatlands of North Dakota. So this is all up to you. Make sure you guys, if you change these settings, you know exactly what is going on. And I have a slide to show you the differences too on how those values change your install. Large nudge and small nudge. Remember, this is those left arrows on the left, those arrows on the left side of the screen, the up and down. Large nudge is set to 0.2. Small nudge is set to 1/10. And again, that is.
Yeah, just like those arrows. So there's the top arrow and the bottom arrow, and the top arrow is divided into 2 sections. The big nudge would be the upper portion, larger portion, and the bottom one would be the triangle that's closer to the on grade indicator.
Correct. Yep. And you guys can change those. It's kind of up to you. The program's not just going to, like, if you change this to 4 inches, it's not just going to instantly bring the plow up. It'll transition that run gradually. But I would recommend leaving them at small enough numbers where if you accidentally bump them, it's not going to affect or greatly affect your run. Tile design. You can see here on the right what average versus bottom means. So average is going to install at a more shallow rate, and bottom is going to try and keep you as deep as it can with trying to maintain your ideal depth. So you see how it follows and hits that dashed line here. Well, that's a lot deeper install than your average up here. Bottom allows more so for rock hits and issues to happen. Average is more of a, okay, I want it to be here and nowhere else. It needs to go in at this depth. We have simulated start depth. What this does is if you check this on, it is going to simulate the starting run at whatever value you have in here. So whenever I do my survey, if I have 5.2 feet set in here, it's going to simulate my plow dropping into the hole at 5.2 feet, even if my ideal depth is set to 3 feet. That way, you guys, if you're doing just individual surveys of different runs, you guys can see what that run will look like without having to dig a starter hole and actually put the plow into the ground. Start flex distance. This is set to 20 feet. We already kind of talked about what this does. So hole distance is down here, and then that transitions into start flex distance up to your projected run or your ideal depth. Reverse survey. This is for guys. I've seen some quad tracks that they actually survey in reverse. It works. So if you guys like to survey in reverse, go ahead and turn reverse survey on. But it mostly applies to commercial plows, I guess I would say. Turn this on, and what it does is it'll just keep track of where your, if your GPS is mounted to the left and right, fore and aft of your tip of your plow, it'll keep track of where all that is located. No survey laser level. This function is for guys who want to drop their plow into the ground and just hit start install at a certain grade. They don't care about depths. They just want it in at a certain grade. This is more in what I would think of more so like yard type stuff. I don't know, not necessarily field stuff, but no survey laser. You drop the plow to the ground, set your grade, and hit start install. You won't get a side profile on the bottom. It will just show an install line. There'll be no depths. We don't because there is no survey, but it will install at a certain grade wherever you put that plow into the ground. At a I should say at a laser function. So it's a laser install. It's like using a laser. So yeah, no survey laser level. Just check that on to use it. And then there's surveyed laser level. So this is you'll still run your survey, turn around, put the plow into the ground, set what grade you want, and it will install it at a like a laser shot. You can still go around curves and stuff like that because this is a GPS system. And because you have a survey, even if you didn't have a survey, it would still let you install like a laser around curves in your field. Pre-rep function. So when this is enabled, what it does is it'll ask you when you hit start install, are you installing tile or are you pre-ripping? And I'll show you guys a video of how this works. But essentially, you'll set your pre-rip depth, as you can see in the picture here, and that is the value above your install depth. So what's going to happen is you hit start install, it's going to ask you, are you doing a pre-rip or installing tile? And if you click pre-rip, it's in it right away when you start moving, it is going to raise the plow up that desired pre-rip depth and then pre-rip that whole run as you go. And I'll show you guys how to use pre-rip in a little bit. Back to main screen. I should note that this button in the bottom right corner, so settings and main screen, this only goes to two different locations. So if you ever lost clicking settings or trying to do something you don't know where to go, just remember settings will only bring you to do two different locations. This background selector button, this will select between the two different maps that you have available on display. So you can see here elevation that associates with the elevation tab that you loaded or the elevation map that you loaded. And then background is obviously your background image that you loaded. Min close is going to be the button that you guys select to shut off for the day. Make sure you use this function or this button. So click min close and do a shutdown. That's going to shut your computer down and also shut down SD tile. If you just do a close, it will only shut down the SD tile. And if you would do a minimize, it will just minimize the window and you can pop it back up. All right, next we're going to move over to the slides, and we're going to go through some stuff in the PowerPoint. So starting the program, again, we've kind of covered this already, so it might not be as in depth, but we will still go through what we have here on the slides. So starting the program, again, remember this is where you guys will load your tile lines, which would be your guidance lines, topography maps, backgrounds, benchmarks, and stuff like that. Right, this is right after the grower farm field. All right, this next page is going to be your interface. So we went through a lot of what the buttons do. There's some stuff we didn't cover quite yet, but I've got a slide showing you guys a little bit more about the interface later. But this is your basic side profile on the bottom. You've got the overhead map up on top, and you guys can see the tile runs and so on. So this is your main interface that you guys will be working with when you guys are actually installing tile. The survey buttons, we went through start survey, or I mentioned start survey and stop survey, but we also have pause survey and resume survey. Start and stop, pretty self-explanatory. Pause survey and resume are going to be used if you guys are trying to install pipe through something, I guess is the example I give. So you'll pause survey on one side of that obstacle, drive around it, and then hit resume. And I guess a road would probably be a good example for guys trying to run a pipe through a road. You probably wouldn't drive right through that. So pause survey and resume. And then at the end of the run, you would still hit stop survey. Side profile, some things to note here. You guys didn't see the shadow pipe. I do have an example of what shadow pipe does, but as you can see, this line looks a little bit different here. When you guys violate a minimum depth when you're installing tile, the shadow pipe is going to display and it will give you a warning indicator right here, pointing exactly to the warning. Again, side profile, you've got your grade change button here, options button, all your different colors of what your min depth, maximum depth, and then ideal depth would be dashed line and then anywhere in the green. So saying ideally I want it here. We've got an overcut warning. So when you guys survey, you might get this red here in your side profile. Well, what this is indicating is that you're in a super deep area and you need to remove dirt or get a bigger plow. So most cases, you're probably just going to go get the scraper and remove this dirt. That way the run will work. And you can actually drive with your plow and mark out where this overcut starts. And if you tap on the side profile, it's going to show you your overcut depth. So you can tell the guy, hey, mark it out, drop your plow and then radio him and tell him, hey, at this point, we need to be about 6 inches deep. And then if you go in the middle, mark it out, scratch the ground and tap on the screen, hey, we need to be about 1.5 feet deep here. And then they can go on and remove the dirt for you. Shadow pipe, this is what I was talking about. We've got a 4-inch pipe displayed. So this is a 4-inch shadow pipe and also an 8-inch pipe displayed. You can see here in the window how that changes throughout your run and how the pipe is displayed. And most of the time, this will only show up if there's a warning or something happens where you need to see the whole install pipe. Auto level. So what happens here is, again, like we said, it only works with vehicles that allow automatic movement while stationary. Again, case tractors, and then our external valve. So you'll click on the bubble level and then click and hold the hold to level button. You'll see this bubble move from the left side. Again, this works. So this bubble indicates that it's pitched down right now. So this is the front of the plow. This is the back of the plow. So pitched down. So as we level this, the bubble will move to the center, just like a construction level works. We've got our bubble indicator. Pre-rip, make sure that pre-rip is checked on, set your pre-rip depth, and then go on and use the function. So I think the video is next. Yeah, so here we've got a video showing how pre-rip works. So what's going to happen, I've already surveyed. I'm dropping my plow into the ground to set my start hole. And this is a typical run or an example of one. I'm next going to hit the bubble level. I'm going to hold this to level my plow. You'll see the bubble move to center. Then I'm going to hit close. And now I'm going to hit start install. Then I'm going to select pre-rip. And you'll see right away, as soon as I start moving, my plow is going to lift up. So watch my indicator here. I start to move, my plow lifts up. And now as I run, I am pre-ripping my desired pre-rip above my install depth.
And guys would use this, I mean, if you're in like a harder soil condition, you know, rather than hooking the dozer or the tractor up to the front of your plow and pulling them through, the pre-rip is going to allow you to break up part of that soil in order to have a install the soil. Then you're not cutting as much the second time when you're putting the tile actually in the ground.
Yeah, you'll get a nice loose, more a bigger loose portion of that dirt profile to work with. Notice my cursor kind of hopped up here above my side profile. You don't have to pre-rip the whole thing. You can just hop around just like I did. So I went to this new spot, hit start pre-rip or the start install button, and then just selected pre-rip, and it drops you back down to that initial pre-rip depth, just like you were at a different part in the run. So now I'm going to do this whole section here. I'm going to kind of zip ahead here. We're going to get to the end of this deep spot, or what we call a deep spot. I'm going to hit stop pre-rip, and then I will lift the plow out of the ground and go back to my start hole. Quick. Go back to our start hole. And then what happens is I will drop my plow into the ground again, and you will see this side profile redesign as you drop the plow down. So once I do that, I'm going to show you guys so that you know where to, what elevation to drop the plow down to. See that star right here? This is the recorded elevation that it took when you guys hit start pre-rip. So it's saying that you started this whole thing at 908.02 for elevation. So up here in the top right corner, you can use this as a reference. You need to get down to 908.02 to be at your starting point wherever you initially did your pre-rip. So this will drop down. I'm going to match that to 908.02 or about. I mean, you don't have to be exact, but we'll get it there. I'm going to level my plow again. Hold to level. It's going to 0. And then I'm going to hit start install. And this time I'm going to install tile. Check that your hydraulics are engaged. So this would be your 1-3 switch on case tractors, or your 1 and 3 hydraulic on John Deere. And then you would start your run. Options menu, we went over this a little bit here. We've got options, edit, tile. Again, we went through this a little bit earlier, so just some things to show you here. Edit feature, this is for editing the way that your tile is going to install in the ground. And I'm just going to cover it with these two pictures here. So you see this transition here, how it's a little bit more abrupt here. And then it's smooth here. Well, I'm going to try and blend that. So what you do is you would go into the options and then click edit, like we were in there before. You'd place an X by tapping on the side profile. So tap an X here, tap an X here, then hit preview. And it's going to essentially remove the elevation data in between these 2 points and help make that transition a little bit nicer than this. This is only the case that the program, you've got some really weird side profile stuff going on where there's some odd grade changes or a big steep ditch or something that really screws up your install. You can remove that elevation data at that point and then install. Just note that this is going to be installed a little bit deeper, because you can see here how those two runs are a little bit different. Just be aware of stuff like that. Edit depth. This hasn't been fully added yet. It doesn't work in all situations, but what the gist of it is, you have your survey. You'll go to the edit window. You'll place a single X, then you'll click on the edit depth, and you can tell it that at this spot I want it to be 4 foot deep. So it needs to be 4 foot deep at 4 foot deep at 145 feet into the install. and then it can go wherever it wants or back up to my ideal depth. So this feature isn't fully in there yet, so if it doesn't work quite how you want it to, just know that. Simulated start depth, we talked about this. Again, you can see here, if this is not turned on, it's going to simulate the start at your ideal depth, the dashed line. If it's turned on, it's going to simulate it at whatever depth you have selected in this box here. Install button, we've got stop install, start install, and pause control. We went through these two, so that's for starting in your start hole. You click start install, and when you're at the end of the run and the last bit of tile goes through your plow, you'd hit stop install. We also have pause control, and this is more for guys wanting to just shut control out. Let's say you're trying to rip stuff up a hill and you don't really care as long as it's about 3 feet in the ground. You'll just put your plow into the ground, put the tile in, and then just rip those install lines up the hill. You don't necessarily care about control. You hit the pause control button. That way it will still record the installs and the depths as long as you have a survey. But that would be what the pause control is used for. Not used very often, but it's definitely a feature. Project menu, we went through some of this. We got save load settings, layers, and new project. GPS menu, remember benchmarks. We skipped satellites and GPS criteria. You guys, there's nothing here. It's more tech stuff. GPS data for checking your information coming in off your receiver. And then GPS control for your connection information. GPS control wired. There's a couple different variations. So here you can see COM1 wired GPS. That's the serial port on the right side of the computer. COM2 would be the PX5 receiver, and baud rates are all going to be 57,600 no matter what. Again, a wired connection. Not everything is set up this way. Again, if you need help determining that, 95% of people are going to be wireless, but this just pertains to the guys who are running wired. GPS control wireless for guys like I was just talking about running the more common setups. You would be set to wireless over here and then hit the start button and you should see GPS detected. And everything will auto-populate for the IP and the port. You don't have to type that in.
Most guys are going to have their GPS getting plugged into the DAC 8000, and the machine control gets plugged into the DAC 8000, and the DAC 8000 gets like tucked behind your seat, and then the DAC 8000 wirelessly talks to the PX501 monitor. So we don't need any extra cables except the power cord going to the PX501, your control computer.
Yeah, it really cleans up that with all with you guys all having these planter monitors, sprayer monitors, and everything. We're just trying to eliminate the cables that go up to the SD drain computer. GPS data, again, RTK fix is what you want to look for on the bottom there. Another thing, I would say diff age, the further that you get away from that base station in the field, the higher this differential age could potentially be. It's not always going to climb, but if you're, if there's a big tree row or tree line in between you and your base station, you might have diff age issues, which will lead to RTK quality issues. Benchmarks, so a GPS reference point in a field. So we're going to talk about benchmarks a little bit here. Here's some screenshots of what it looks like to actually take a benchmark. So again, GPS, go to benchmarks, find that area where you want to make into a benchmark, hit add new. It's going to collect some points here. And then once those points are collected, it's going to have a benchmark. I did drive away from this. So there's my vehicle cursor, but here's my benchmark that I left on the corner of that building. I don't recommend doing it right by buildings because your GPS probably won't be as good as doing it out in the open somewhere. And then when you come back, go to GPS benchmarks, click on it in the list here, and then hit start correction. DAC menu, we went through DAC config. Oh, we didn't. I'll touch on that later. DAC settings, remember turning on and off your different functions. So your slope sensor, your pitch control, pitch and roll messages, DAC data to view the data coming in off of that sensor, and then DAC control is your connection location, just like GPS control. Again, here's the DAC control page. Again, not everybody is going to be set up as a wired connection. This version would be the older AFL2s. Well, actually, it's not even that. But just COM2 would be a VX601. So here, COM2 would be the DAC connection. PX501. This is all determined by if you're running wireless or what COM port you're using for connecting. But it should say DAC detected regardless. And then here are the wireless settings for guys running, like what we just talked about, the clean setup, I'm going to call it, where everything is wireless to the controller. DAC connection, what to look for when you guys are setting up for the year. So when you're plugging in, let's say you were tiling last year, you come back to tile again, you've got some things to look for troubleshooting if things aren't matching up, or just for setup in general. Down on the right side of here, or the bottom picture here, we've got a green indicator on LED position 7, then also a blue one. The green one is going to indicate GPS going into the controller, and that should be flickering green. It indicates every time a sentence is broadcasted from your receiver. And then also we've got a blue light that tells you if the controller is connected to the computer or not. It should flash about once every 2 seconds, but just know that you need both a green light and a blue light. DAC data, again, it's all about viewing the data coming in off of your slope sensor. Again, just for informational purposes. Sometimes it's nice for troubleshooting. If you're having slope sensor issues, you might see this is your pitch value, so minus 10 degrees. If this is hopping all over the place and you're sitting still, you might have a bad slope sensor. DAC settings, kind of like what we went through before, just shows you what it looks like if things are going to be checked or unchecked. Visual menu, this is all about how things are displayed. So as you guys want to change the colors on your side profile, your overhead map, stuff like that, you guys can go through these, flagging and logging, recording GPS, and your units. If you want to display kilometers per hour, you guys can switch those up as well. So here's the graph menu, just showing you what that looks like, changing the different colors. Indicator bar, again, don't change any of those values that we kind of showed here. Map menu, this is the, I was just going to point out the show grid lines button. Remember, check that on, and then what will happen is you'll get grid lines spaced and directional to however you type in the heading and then your spacing as well. So this is something we didn't cover. This would be a visual or something that you guys can change however you want your data to be displayed. If you right click or long press on so like this 2.36, this is a display bar. This 0.8 is a display bar, and this 10 is a display bar. And I believe it's just like number satellites, speed up or something, speed that it's set to right now. But if you long press on these, this list will pop up, and then you guys can select the bit of data that you want to see displayed in each of these different windows. Vertical bar, again, just showing you how far on off grade you are from your install. So it'll flash red like this when your plow is going off grade, but it should stay green pretty much the whole time that you're tiling. Program menu, remember we've got profile, machine, tile, support, and export. You guys will most likely just be in profile, and I would guess probably the export button. Once you get your machine settings set up, you probably won't be going back to this page. And then also with your tile sizes, unless you guys get some different booths. So profile, remember that's changing min grade, max grade, or I'm sorry, just min grade, minimum depth, max depth, ideal depth, and stuff like that. And here we kind of talk about those things. Remember that there is a page down. So if you can't find your setting, there is a page down or an arrow down. Here's an example of what the different settings look like. So we have a hold distance of 25 and a start flex of 40. So you can see here for 25 feet, I will be installing at minimum grade and then transitioning within 40 feet up to my ideal depth. Versus the example below, hold distance of 0 and start flex of 200. It'll just start transitioning as soon as you hit start install up to your ideal depth. Machine, again, all of your measurements. So when you guys are setting up or switching implements, you got to make sure that these are set up correctly for each machine. Tile menu, again, going through this, adding the different tile sizes that you guys want to use, hit the plus button, type in all of your information below, and then hit done. And you'll just keep populating whenever you guys add tile, and then you'll get each different tile size in the tile selector box up above here. Support menu, again, online help, check for updates. And if you want, there's a manual in here as well. But online help and check for updates are going to be the main ones that you guys would use. And these both need internet access to work. Program menu and export, we went through both of these. Again, project is going to be all of the raw data. Remember, we exported onto Google Earth. And then the report is going to be the PDF version that you guys can print out or just give to your customers. Background images, again, here's a picture on the left here of what 3D looks like or what 3D view looks like versus a background overhead map. So you can kind of see how that's helpful to see those small depressions. If you're trying to do some custom stuff, custom tiling without a plan, you guys can see where those lower depressions are throughout the field. DAC 8000 basic tuning. Again, I'm not going to get into the fine details of this, but if you can't get your plow to control well by turning the hydraulics just up and down a little bit, there is a DAC config page where you guys can tune your plow. So these sliders are kind of the main thing I want to talk about. These are going to help you guys set the minimum movement of your plow. So this value, this plus side is going to be the up motion, and this minus side is going to be the down motion. The further this slider goes up the slide, the faster your plow is going to move at your minimum movement. Same with the down. The further this goes down the slide, the faster it's going to move in the down motion. If your plow is super jerky, it could be that your first, what's called your first step, or your slider is set to too high of a value. So we need to back that down a little bit. And you can, so if your first step, if it's really choppy and your first step is set to 0.55, I would move this to like a 0.54 for your up motion. And if it's the down motion that's too fast, I would change this from a 0.44 to like a 0.45. In this example, the closer you get to 0.5 that's going to be off. So 0.5 is off for this example, and this is an analog setup. So this would be John Deere or Case. So the closer this first step value is to 0.5, the slower your plow is going to react. So like with the up, the further, anything above 0.5 is up, anything below 0.5 is a down motion with analog stuff. So John Deere, like I said, John Deere and Case. So the further you get away from that, so 0.56 would be faster, 0.6 would be faster. Same thing with the down, 0.43, 0.42, 0.4, and so on. If you find your first step, like the slowest movement that works, and it's still a little bit jittery or something, you guys can add and remove steps. So the more steps you add, the slower it's going to respond, and the less steps you add, the faster it's going to respond. And again, just tap on the value boxes here, type in your value, and then hit OK, and then you're done. Again, an important part is hydraulic flow should be set at 60, I would say 60 to 70%. If you have high flow tractors, you're probably going to be back down to I would say I've seen some at like 20%. So you can really get down there with the high flow tractors. And that is all we have. So if you guys have any questions, for sure, feel free to email us. Those Let's Chat icons on our website. Um,
Let's 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 take a look at the website.
yeah. Yep.
So first, we're going to go to sddrain.com. Let's just do that. This is where you guys will end up going. So if you go to the support tab and then head down to troubleshooting, click on that. These are going to be most common questions. So for instance, the big ones are going to be like, why don't I have a GPS signal? Or how do I set up my phone so I can hotspot? Um, those are the big ones. But for instance, like in the why don't I have a GPS signal? If you click on that first, it'll tell you, make sure that that stuff is powered, and then you can hit the next step. What it's going to show you is going to ask how your connection is, and it'll just this will keep on going to different questions, and these are the same questions that uh, Luke would ask you if you called in. If we just get to a spot where the problem isn't solved, it'll tell you to call in for some more detailed um, troubleshooting methods. Um, but a lot of times, guys can get stuff figured out by going through this um, area. Another spot, if we go to the support tab, you can go to training. So this is going to be where you can sign up for training classes. Below where you sign up for training classes will be the most recent videos that you have. Um, uh, so if you want to review training sessions, that's where you're going to be able to look. Let's go back to support and let's go to manuals. The manuals, there's going to be online manuals. There's downloadable PDFs that are below that if you wanted to download something so you can print it off and have the installation manual. And then there's some quick reference guides that are there on the bottom. But if we go back up to let's go to the tile menu. Here's the online version of the tile menu. So if you were having trouble, you're like, oh, what are my GPS settings for the John Deere 3000 or 6000? If you just click on that, quickly it's going to tell you exactly what the settings are supposed to be for your GPS. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to switch this out, and I don't remember how to do that. Boom, there it is. We can go back, hit the back button on the browser. Um, uh, and then if you scroll down there, Luke, it can go through and it'll tell you exactly what all these, the main screen, the different buttons are, different areas are, more detailed view on uh, what um, where you may have a specific question about one of the operations of the program.
Yeah. So it's kind of handy to have this available.
Yep, and it's responsive, so I mean it works well on your mobile phone to take a look at and see what's going on. So again, if you have any questions on training, feel free to give us a call, or you could email us. Those contact information are on at sddrain.com. You can hit the contact us page. You can sure go to um, the chat window too. Um, uh, so there's opportunities for if there's more questions you have about uh, questions you have on the program, feel free to give us a call. And that's going to do it for our online training class.